what I'm about to tell you changed everything. Not just for this podcast, but for how I see creativity, community, and really courage. If you ever felt stuck between who you are and who you're becoming, well, this episode's for you. A month and a half ago, I decided to have a meeting that completely terrified me. I met with my creative partner, Ben, and said 7 words that would change everything. I think I need to go solo. This wasn't about ego. This wasn't about creative differences. This was actually about following a whisper that had become impossible to ignore. Hi, I'm Sharon, and in the next 17 minutes, I'm going to tell you why the scariest creative decision of my life might exactly be what you need to hear today. Before we go anywhere else, I need to talk about something really beautiful. This podcast, The Creative Odyssey. The Creative Odyssey exists because of a partnership that changed my life. Ben and I didn't just create 14 episodes together. We created a space where creativity could breathe. Ben, dude, I want you to know that what we built together wasn't just a stepping stone. It was a masterpiece in its own right. Every conversation we had, every guest we welcomed, every moment of discovery, that was real. That was necessary. That was exactly what needed to happen. And here's what excites me the most. Ben's pouring all that creative energy into his YouTube channel, Range Bin Workshop. He's creating content that's uniquely him through woodworking and DIY content. And honestly, it's some of the most creative storytelling I've ever seen. So if you're not subscribed yet, pause this video and go subscribe right now. I'll wait. Where there was one creative voice, now there are 2, and each following their own curiosity. The interesting thing is that I've been thinking about why this decision felt so terrifying. And I realize it goes back to a story I've never told publicly. I've always been what you might call a creatively chaotic, or very nicely known as a multipassionate. Music one week, woodworking the next, writing, painting, drawing, video editing. I was like a creative busy bee, never landing anywhere long enough to build something meaningful. And for years, I thought I was broken, I was a failure, I'm stupid, all that stuff. I wasn't smart enough. And I remember the constant questioning from people around me. When are you going to pick up something and stick with it? And I remember job interviews where I try to hide how many hobbies and things that I'm involved in so that I could say I can give you 100% devotion and focus to this job. And it always worked. Completely lied. I remember feeling a complete creative failure, and I couldn't just choose one thing. Because here's what I didn't understand then. I wasn't broken. I wasn't a failure. I wasn't stupid. I was just missing one ingredient that makes creative chaos into creative courage. Community. You see, everything changed when my friend Andy and I started hanging out and talking about creative stuff. Sometimes we might only have 45 minutes, but we would talk about designing things with wood, 3D printing, substrate, and life, faith. And those conversations were like creative jet fuel. And when Andy moved 2 hours away for his dream job, I was genuinely happy. But also, I felt this massive void. Those conversations weren't just fun. They were essential. They were feeding a part of my soul I didn't even know that was starving. So I did something that scared me. I reached out to 2 guys I barely knew, were acquaintances, Caleb and Ben. And I said, hey, dude, would you be down to first hanging out and do something creative, or better yet, make something? And they were fully down. The first night with Caleb, we ended up making music on his felt piano and the synths, and even our wives couldn't believe what was happening. And I don't know about Caleb, but I couldn't believe what was happening. Then Ben and I connected over woodworking, music, video, and similar life circumstances. And within minutes, we were talking about grain patterns to joinery techniques to dealing with life and sharing our experience of how to husband. These weren't just friendships forming. This was creative DNA recognizing itself. The creative odyssey started because Ben and I realized we had accidentally created something super special. A space where creative conversation would happen without judgment, without competition, just pure curiosity. Our very first attempt, we filmed a live ambient music jam session to launch Caleb's album. It was messy, experimental. It was in a barn in the middle of Ohio, and it was absolutely perfect. After that, we had a little podcast session to talk about creativity, and 14 episodes later, we had interviewed creatives from around the world, from Burkina Faso, Colombia, Cleveland, Sri Lanka, Ghana, and we realized we had built something that actually mattered. But more importantly, we had both grown in ways that we never really expected. And that's when I started noticing something. Ben's eyes would light up differently when he talked about his YouTube project and his editing and his storytelling for that. And mine lit up differently when I met so many amazing creatives and I just felt this urge to tell their stories. We were both following our own creative curiosity, but it was leading us in different directions. I realize this now. That wasn't a problem to solve. It was an evolution to celebrate. That conversation with Ben was one of the hardest I've ever had. Not because it was conflict, but it required a level of honesty that made us both vulnerable. When I said, Ben, I think I need the freedom to chase stories wherever they lead and be ready to record an episode ASAP in a moment's notice. And I think you need the freedom to build your YouTube channel vision without feeling tied to podcast schedules. Honestly, it was a sigh of relief when Ben understood and felt the same way. While we are departing a co-host relationship, I can genuinely say that Ben and I tried our best to be honest with each other and constantly strived to have a healthy friendship. I learned a lot about me and my triggers when it comes to working with the creative team. And I'm sure Ben did too. I'm so proud of how we handled everything within the last year of our podcast. The way I see it, we're not ending a partnership, we're graduating from it. We were both brave enough to admit that what had brought us together was now leading us in different directions. And the beautiful thing is, that's exactly as it should be. Because here's what I learned. Real creative partnerships aren't about holding each other back out of loyalty. They're about launching each other forward out of love, respect, and really just like pure encouragement. So what does the creative odyssey look like going forward? It's about to get more personal, more global, and more experimental than ever. In 3 weeks, I'm getting on a plane to Sri Lanka, the country where I was born, the culture that shaped me, but a place I left when I was young. I'm going to sit down with creatives whose stories will change how you think about creativity, art, survival, and what it means to create, not for fame, but for healing and really pure curiosity and following it. But it's not just about travel. Every episode is going to leave you feeling like you just had one of those conversations, like I call them Andy conversations, which will make you want to go make something immediately. I want to prove that creativity isn't reserved for the gifted and talented. It's a birthright that's been buried under society's need to put us in that tiny little boxes they created. And I want to bridge cultures, showing how creativity heals the same way in Sri Lanka, Cleveland, and in fact around the world. But here's the thing, this isn't just about my story. This is an invitation to you. I want to give you something practical you can use right now. In the last 2.5 years of following my creative curiosity, I've discovered the Creative Courage Framework. It's how you can make any creative leap, whether it's starting a business, launching a YouTube channel, or finally picking up that paintbrush or pencil or pen or whatever. Step 1. Listen to the whisper before it becomes a scream. Your creative instinct starts as a whisper. That little voice that says, I want to try that. You know what? That'd be so cool if I try that. Dude, it'd be so amazing if I do that. Don't wait until burnout or crisis to force your hand. I spent 8 years in a career completely feeling stuck, thinking about ending my life constantly because I ignored that whisper. Listen to it now. Whatever the excuse against it, you're too old, it's a waste of time and money. Those experiences are far too priceless, especially when you look back at your life as you age. Step 2. Start before you're ready. You see, when I was feeling depressed and lost and completely stuck, randomly out of one day, I heard this whisper, go to the store, buy some Play-Doh or clay that kids play with. And for some reason, I followed that whisper. All I knew was I just needed to make something out of this clay. It was about creating without any rules, just making whatever I felt like, and more importantly, as freely as possible. The goal isn't to save some masterpiece for next time, it's just to make freely because the path reveals itself through action, not through planning. Step 3. Follow curiosity over comfort. You see this sign that I made called the trust the process. This is not the first version I made. In fact, this one is the first iteration. If you look closely, there's a lot of imperfections here. As a matter of fact, this one's completely perfect, and this one has all these ridges, and it looked a little bit different. You see, when I was cutting this on the router table, this big chunk of wood just completely broke off and flew, and even on the side. Instead of feeling completely disappointed and just throwing it away because I thought I wasted a good hardwood piece, a maple hardwood piece, and really money, I decided to sand it where it was chipped. All of a sudden, I saw the beauty in the mistake. The interesting part was I was making a plaque that says, trust the process. And I actually did. You know what? The best thing that came out of this mistake? It inspired to make all of these signs behind me that are displayed in my studio. When you choose curiosity over staying comfortable, pure magic happens. Step 4. Trust your gut and move fast. I realized I needed to move fast, to trust my gut, and make things happen without getting stuck in endless planning and preparation. Because when your creative instincts say now, listen to it. What creative whisper have you been ignoring? What partnership have you outgrown? What direction is your curiosity pointing that you're too afraid to follow? I want to hear about it. Comment below, send me a DM, email me. Tell me about the creative risk you're avoiding. Because that's what this community is going to be about. People brave enough to follow their creative instincts, even when the path isn't clear. And if you're feeling inspired right now, if this conversation lit up something in you, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because the next episode drops in 48 hours and I'm going to tell you about the day I hit rock bottom, how it became the foundation for everything good that followed. And finally, Ben, dude, if you're still watching, thank you for being exactly the creative partner I needed to become exactly the creative I'm meant to be. You didn't just co-host a podcast with me, dude. You helped me find my voice. Huge shout out to my wife, who was the new producer of the podcast and who painted this wall for me to help set up the studio. She loves painting and I hate painting. Thanks, babe. I appreciate the support. To everyone else, some of us are traveling together for a while and some of us are going solo and some of us are just starting. We're all heading towards the same destination, becoming who we are actually meant to be. I'm Sharan. I'll see you in 48 hours. Until then, see you soon.